And the Republican zone, although this is a bit of a special COVID-19 edition of the Republican zone. We're going to have kind of a dual show today. We're going to have both the Republican zone and my friend Britt Carpenter on from Be the Voice. So I'd say welcome, Britt, but we're kind of doing this together, and we're not in the same room. We're literally in different rooms, different houses, in different parts of the city.
No, but it's actually pretty cool that we're able to at least still do this and communicate with what's going on out there. So yeah, welcome. Welcome to Be a Voice.
Absolutely. I mean,
and
this
I'm
is
happy
a crazy.
to be on Republican Zone.
Yes. I bet you never thought you'd be on a show called the Republican Zone.
There's a lot of things in life that I never thought I would do or be at. So nothing takes me by surprise anymore. And I'm okay. Most of my family are Republicans.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. My father, he was a strong Republican. My uncle, he is the epitome of a Republican, for what it's worth. And they're both great guys. Sometimes their attitudes are pretty bad, but they're great guys. So yeah, no, Republicans are something I'm familiar with.
Are they Trump-loving Republicans? Because I think a lot of Republicans even will put themselves in two categories: those who love Trump, those who are not crazy about Trump. Are they diehard Trump Republicans?
Well, my father passed away 2 years ago in January.
Sorry to hear that.
Thank you. And when he passed away, he had his red hat for sure. My uncle, who he is still with us, he is a diehard Trump fan.
Interesting.
He really likes Trump. It's about Trump. Listen, when Trump was running back in 2016, when he was running, we were in Vegas, and he made my aunt and I walk from the Bellagio to Trump Tower just so he could buy a hat in like the middle of the day, 110 degrees, and let's go get a hat. Well, you could have got it, but he needed to. So yes, I would say he's diehard.
Nice. So yes, it's interesting. You're kind of, we're somewhat mirror images of each other, because my whole family, or at least my parents, my mother also passed, but my mother was a pull-the-lever Democrat. My father is still a Democrat, although I think he is probably a little split. Look, I'm a moderate as well. So, but I was a Democrat my entire life until 2 years ago. So,
well, and that's it's very cool to hear that. I did not know that. That's interesting. It's interesting. It's almost like going from Judaism to Catholicism.
That's right. Yeah,
it's a total switch. But even though I'm registered Democrat, I think sometimes people may find it shocking to believe that I do have some Republican values. I do believe in some of what the Republican Party stands for and is about, because you have to really remain open to all parties. You have to listen to it and formulate your opinion, because if not, then it's just like all one sided. Just put the blinders on, and then it's like put the middle fingers up to the other people, and I can't do that. So,
and single party rule, no matter at what level, and that was part of my issue with the Democratic Party in Philadelphia, that I don't agree with single party rule, and that's, for the most part, that's all we have in Philadelphia, but that's what the voters are choosing. So, that's where we are. Even when I was a Democrat, I said I was a very, very conservative Democrat. In fact, people, my Democratic friends said I was a conservative, that I was a Republican already. They called me a dino, a Democrat name only. And now that I'm a liberal Republican, the Republicans call me a rhino. So I say, I take it as a compliment. I'd say that means I can think for myself, and I don't open one handbook and say this is what's right or wrong. But like you just said, the Democrats are right on some things and they're wrong on some things. And the Republicans are right on some things and they're wrong on some things.
So. And I can even push the buck a little bit and say sometimes they're wrong on a lot of things on both sides, and it's interesting because we've gotten to this point in, society, to where people have taken it to the extremes. Like, they're not allowing you to be this liberal Republican. You do that, and it's almost like, they're going to burn you at the stake there or something, because that sort of goes against the full beliefs. It's either all or nothing. And I don't understand why it has to be an all or nothing mentality. That was sort of, I think, like maybe like my grandfathers and my great grandfathers back in the 60s and 70s mentality, But I think in the year 2020, I think our mentalities have to be like that. We have to remain a little bit liberal. We have to remain open to the ideas and the progressions and regressions of each party.
Sure.
And
No, and it is interesting. When I became a Republican 2 years ago, and I tell people said, "Why do you become a Republican?" I said, "Well, or why did you leave the Democratic Party?" I said, I didn't leave the Democratic Party. They left me. The
oh,
Democratic Party became much more liberal. I mean, I am a capitalist, and I'm not saying every Democrat is a socialist. I'm not, and if you are a socialist, I think you're probably still a pretty good person. So I'm not judging you in a bad way, but
right.
I am a capitalist. I don't think that's where the Democratic Party is anymore. I feel like they are becoming further and further left. But when I became a Republican, Brett, I expected the Republican Party in Philadelphia to be pretty liberal, actually. And I didn't
Really?
expect, yeah, I expected, well, we're in a very liberal city, right? So I figured, okay,
Mhm.
even the Republicans are going to be, you know, moderate to, maybe I'll say a moderate to liberal Republican, but it's really not the case. I mean, the Republicans who are in Philly, they are diehard. Many, I'd say the majority are diehard far right Republicans. So they look at me like, "Oh my God, you're a rhino." When I ran for city council last year, what they said was, "You're not really a Republican. You're just trying to take one of those two seats." Kind of like what ended up did happen, that one of the two seats that not reserved for Republicans, but two seats that are reserved for non-Democrats, they thought
Mhm.
I was basically a Democrat trying to get one of those seats. And it took about 2
Fair.
months for them to realize, okay, you're not a Democrat, but you're just not as conservative and far right as we are. So, but they
And
did take me in and welcome me finally.
well, and it's interesting you say that about you know, uh, people in Philly and how you would expect them to be liberal on the Republican side. And I live in the Roxborough, Manayunk area, and
That's a
I've
lot of Republicans.
oh my gosh, I've been here since 2008, and I lived at first right off of Main Street, which was a different demographic altogether
Mhm.
because it's a very transient. However, you had the churches right. I lived in between the two churches, St. John's and St. Joseph's,
Sure.
and now I live up the hill more in Roxborough. And I just, when I first moved up here and I would listen to some of the neighbors speak to me, they were very open about their beliefs and they were very strong with their convictions. And I, of course, maintained and didn't say words back, but like I was really shocked. I was
Yeah.
shocked by how like there's no swaying. There was no like it was their way or no way.
Yeah, I mean, the concentration of Republicans in Philly are Northeast Philadelphia, but the most Republicans in a ward, I think that's the 22nd ward over there. Well, there's a couple wards, but the largest ward as far as Republicans, the most
Mhm.
most the largest percentage, I should say, is that area, the Roxborough area of
I believe
Republicans in
it.
the city of Philadelphia.
Oh, trust me, I believe it. You don't see as many the liberals in this area because they're very outspoken in their decor and the
Mhm.
signs in their windows, things like that. But very very conservative. My street is very conservative. I have an internal affairs agent that lives on my street, and uh, just walking by the house, I get a little shiver and draft sometimes.
Well, that's also a very, very Catholic area. I mean, as you
Yes.
said, you every couple blocks, and unfortunately, as a Catholic myself, some of those churches are closing. But Roxborough is one of those areas, and there are other areas like in South Philly. You can't go 2 blocks. You'll have your Italian Catholic church, and
Yep.
2 blocks further you have your Polish Catholic church, and you have your German Catholic church. So, and it's interesting. Growing up, I would say the Catholic Church was like my family, like my mom and dad. They were mostly Democrats. I think we're kind of seeing more and more Catholics, and I'm going to speak Catholics, that they're becoming, not becoming, that more and more Catholics are Republican now, is something. What I'm seeing is I feel like the religious, you know, the Democratic Party, I feel like sometimes, and I see it on Facebook, and you can't look at everything on Facebook, but it's like they attack religion. Like religion is what everything is wrong in this world is because of religion. And if we had no religion, then everyone will get along. And I don't agree with that. And I don't think everyone says that by any means, but I feel attacked sometimes. When I say I'm Catholic, people look at me like, oh, you're okay with Catholic priests molesting all those children. or else you would have left the Catholic Church. And I'm like,
I,
no,
I
I'm
don't
not
mean to
okay
laugh
with
at that, but
that.
like that's such a narrow-minded thing to think about people. Like, you
Yeah,
know, it's very difficult. But people are once again very staunch on their beliefs in that aspect.
sure.
So, you know, to hear that though, but you know, sorry, go ahead, Drew.
No, yeah, no. So I was, it's interesting that I see more and more Catholics leaving the Democratic Party. My dad's one of them. My dad at this point. He's 80 years old, so he's not going to change. But he says he votes mostly Republican at this point. So
Well, I think probably because, you know, the 80-year-old Democrats, their beliefs back when they became Democrats are what the Republican beliefs are now.
yeah,
I
no,
believe.
yeah,
You know, I believe that's where the parties have really, that's how gears have shifted or how far that, you know, they've come or whatever it may have been. But that's what I look at it. Like,
yeah.
you know, my mother, who is very open-minded, never once, you know, doesn't curse. You know, she's Catholic, you know, she Italian. And um she's very, she tries to remain very liberal in her beliefs. But you know, I say she's Democrat, but she's not. She's Republican, you know, but she's more on the Democrat thinking and all that. But it's interesting to hear her at her age of 70, almost 78, and her thinking. And I'm really shocked that she's maintained a more liberal belief at this stage for
Well,
all that she's experienced.
if you think about Catholicism and some of the underlying beliefs, I mean, helping other people is kind of one of the main beliefs in the Catholic Church. It's living a simple life. It's quality. It's equity. It's all those things. Which is why I really don't paint myself with either brush. I am a Republican, but there's no belief that number one. I also think there's a lot of things that I question. Why is that a quote unquote Democratic ideal, or why is that a Republican ideal? A lot of people, you've had Duke Orsino on your show. He's a Republican and he's a gay man. And people think, oh, you're a Republican. And when I became a Republican, actually, somebody who lives in my neighborhood and he's a gay man. He's like, you're a Republican? So you're against LGBT people? And I'm like,
Sorry.
no, not at all. In fact,
Once again, wow.
I said, I am for LGBT rights. And they said, well, you're Catholic and you're a Republican. And I get it. I'm a Catholic who disagrees with the Catholic Church's belief on LGBT issues. So, but there are a lot of issues that I look at. I'm like, that has nothing to do with the Democratic Party. It has nothing to do with the Republican Party. And I look at it as Republican, small government, lower taxes. Democrat, larger government, higher taxes. I mean, in a very simplistic view of it. A lot of the social issues, I don't understand why they're Democratic or Republican. I mean, I am pro-life, but I've never understood why pro-life was a Democrat ideal. In fact, with a lot of Catholics, I think that's why Catholics are leaving the Democratic Party, because the party did say they don't want pro-life people. And that was kind of one of the reasons I left. I said, if you don't want me anymore, I guess. I mean, not only that, this is what most Democrats believe. It was the head of the Democratic National Committee saying, if you're pro-life, we don't want you. And a lot of people came out, including Bernie Sanders, who's one of the largest pro-choice people in the world, said, that's wrong. Like, you can be pro-life and be a Democrat, but that's not what the head of the Democratic National Committee, I can't believe his name is escaping me at this point, but he said, no, if you're pro-life, we don't want you. So I was like, okay.
So funny you said Bernie Sanders, because the minute you started talking about that, I was like, almost like how Bernie Sanders was like, what? You know, that man, it sort of goes against the grain of everything, you know? And I like Bernie. I liked Bernie back when he was running in 2016. I liked him. I liked him over, the other choice of candidate. But I got to tell you, I'm not quite sure anymore who's fit or who's really capable of
Sure.
sitting in that seat and running the country and calling
No.
the shots.
Well, it's interesting. Let's face it. We have two parties basically in this country. We should have more, because the Democratic Party is, you have the Biden Democrats and then you have the Bernie Democrats. You're completely different ideals. You shouldn't be in the same party. And the Republicans in the same way. You have your far right ultra Republicans, and then you have your, I can't believe I'm saying this. Then you have Mitt Romney, who is probably never would have been considered a liberal Republican back in the day, but like Brian Fitzpatrick, a local politician who was considered we should probably have at least 4 parties. If we're kind of going on based on a belief. I actually, when I was a Democrat in 2016, I was not a fan of Hillary Clinton. I just didn't, I didn't like her. She's not likable. People say, well, put your finger on exactly what you didn't like. It just, I didn't think she was a good person. And I thought Bernie was a good person. I voted for Bernie in the primary. Now, I don't think I'd vote for Bernie now. My personal belief, and I know you like him, but I don't know how you can be a millionaire socialist. So I look at someone like Bernie now and say, look, man, if that's what you want, and you can't be a millionaire. You can't be a socialist and a millionaire. And he pays his taxes. And I mean, and you can have a lot of kind of beliefs that are somewhat socialist, but to be a democratic socialist, I don't think you can be a millionaire. But
I like the man. I mean, I
yeah,
wouldn't go as far as say I'm a Bernie bro or whatever they say or whatever they call it, what do they label? But like, it's funny. Once again, like I'm very open and believing to everybody. But then I got to see the actions. The actions really have to really speak louder than words. There's a lot of talk always in politics. Politics
yeah,
is all about talks, and I get that because that's you're giving the people what they want. You're telling the people what they want to hear. But in my mind, I don't care what party you belong to, what actions are you taking and what are the results of those actions? And is
sure,
it for the good of the people? And if so, then I don't care what you are. I don't care
yeah.
what party you come from. You're doing good for, you're doing good for the citizens. You're doing good for the community, the city, the local, the federal. Awesome. But I don't think many people look at it like that.
Yeah, no, I look, and I think most people are good people, right? And when I ran for office last year, and I'm
Or they
running for
want to be
office
good
this,
people.
yeah, I'm running for office again this year. It doesn't feel like I'm running because I'm just sitting in my house, but
So
it's,
2 years in a row, you're running.
yeah, we all kind of want the same thing, and I'm going to do this more on a local level, but in Philadelphia, we want better and safer schools. We want safer neighborhoods. And we want God. What now? I'm blanking out. I'm out of my game. It's good schools, safer neighborhoods, and good jobs, right?
Oh, I
And
thought you were going to say legal cannabis for everybody. I'm sorry.
legal cannabis. Hey, well, that is my liberal side. Well, I say I'm liberal there because I want cannabis to be legalized. Nothing above that.
Right
But
on.
I want to tax the hell out of it, right? Because
Well,
I want to take that revenue, right?
hello. Listen, if it's legal, then it should be taxable.
Yeah,
All right. I get
yeah,
that.
and
You
not tax it
know,
how have a normal tax, any other retail tax, and
yeah, you're not going to put a 15% sales tax on it.
no, yeah, no,
You
yeah.
keep it at that 8%. It's still gonna. But like, I get it. But anyway, sorry.
No, yeah, that's my liberal, and it's interesting now that we're in the middle of this pandemic. A
Mhm.
lot of people are starting to say, we need to look at single payer uh, health systems, and I am not for a single payer health system. In a perfect world, I would be. I think we need affordable health care for all,
Mhm.
and I would do single payer if I trusted the government to run the healthcare system, which the government doesn't do too well in running things. So I
No.
don't think I want them running
Agreed.
my healthcare. I thought Obamacare was. I'm a fan of Obamacare. I think a lot of things need to be fixed, but I thought it was a healthy compromise. Everyone, I don't care who you are, deserves affordable healthcare. I wish it could be free, but the only way to make it free is for the government to run it. But I thought Obamacare is a good first step, and it made it more affordable for most. I mean, I just don't think, a lot of people, a lot of Republicans will say, "Well, I work hard and I want better health care." And look, I understand that view, but I think a 5-year-old child with cancer should be able to go to shop and get,
Mhm.
I don't care what their economic situation is, they should be able to get the health care that any child gets. So, and now that we're in the middle of this COVID-19, it's wow, I do think right now those tests should be free. And if you're sick from COVID-19, everything's free. If you have healthcare,
Absolutely.
healthcare pay. If you don't, then we got to figure it out. But there should be no denial of care because you don't have insurance.
Yeah, these are really uncertain times, and these are really scary times. And I'm really surprised there hasn't been much more. I mean, well, because the only thing we're hearing in the media and the news is COVID-19. It's the topic of it all. but we're not hearing more about what the everyday people are experiencing and going
Yeah.
through doing this. I mean, you yourself, you're running for office again 2 years in a row. All right, number one, crazy man. All right,
Yeah.
2 years in a row.
As a
But
Republican in the
as
city
a
of Philadelphia.
But I wish you the best of luck with that because I know you have a passion towards it, and helping the community and being a part of that. So I really hope that this year it is a really good year for you. Not that last year wasn't, but this year would be great to be sitting in that seat. But
Yes.
okay, 2 years in a row. Number one, why 2 years, Drew? Why?
I ran for city council last year.
Mhm.
I wanted to do that. I've wanted to do it for the past few years. I've been a leader of my community, the local RCO, Logan Support Neighborhood Association, for 4 years, and it was kind of the next step I wanted to do. This year, I had no intention of running. I'll be honest with you. I was asked, I think 3 times. The first 2 times I said no. I'm running in the 182nd legislative district for state rep. The 182nd has a 8-to-1 ratio, Democrat to Republican. So I'm under no delusions of grandeur here. This race is probably impossible to win. But on the Republican side, we've all talked about it. Our Republican leaders, our Republican candidates, our Republican elected officials. We have to get involved in these races. We can't have, when a Republican goes in, or even a Democrat who just doesn't necessarily want to vote all Democrat, they need choices. They need to be able to look at that other side, whether it's an independent or Republican. In our case, we want Republican. We need to try to get people in every seat. And since I ran last year, it was a natural fit for them to come to me and say, "Will you run again?"
Nice, nice.
So Brian Sims
Congratulations.
and Brian Sims is the current state rep, and he is a target of the Republican Party. So they wanted someone to run against them, and I know Brian well. I get along with Brian fine. We are probably on opposite sides of the spectrum when it comes to our beliefs, but that's why I did it. So yeah, they first 2 times I said no. The third time I said look, and I sat down with you have people in Harrisburg. They're called the House Republican Campaign Committee. Democrats have the same thing. It's the Democratic House Campaign Committee. They came to me and sat down with me, and I said, well, what do you expect from this race? I said, do you expect me to win? And if they said yes, then I probably would have said no. They were honest with me, and they said, Drew, this is a stepping stone. We need to get people on the ballot. We need to give people choices. So I said, all right. I said, I just ran for office. I said, most of the people who gave to me last cycle were Democrats. I said, so I'm not gonna be able to raise money very easily. I said, so you gotta help find me money. I said, you don't have to pay for everything, but you gotta help find me money. So
That's fair.
yeah, so that's why I'm doing it. It's gonna be
Nice.
crazy. I have one of my daughters walking in the room. You might hear my daughters are working from home, obviously homeschooling. So you might hear my daughters in the background.
That's all right. If I didn't have my earphones in, you'd be hearing one of my dogs snoring because it's
Oh, is
really
that right?
loud right now.
Well, about 5 minutes ago, they were fighting upstairs. I could hear them. I don't know. They're in school, so I don't, quote unquote, in different rooms. So I don't know what they're fighting about.
Well, this is awesome though, because this is sort of like what has become like the unexpected new norm. So for us to be able to have this conversation with your family home, and for us to be sitting here in this element and not in the studio element and
Sure.
having that conversation is different to begin with. It also opens up some different types of dialogue, because I think you're a little more natural when you're able to sit at home and talk a
Sure.
little bit freer or something along those lines. I was going to say, about Brian Sims. I know Brian personally. I know
Yeah.
him personally, and I'm also a firm believer though that you need, when you're a public figure of any type or in the public eye, you really need to be careful and tread lightly. And this is me saying this, and you need to be really aware of what you're saying and know that once you say it, you can't take it back. It's there. You put it out there, it's there. So, and shame on you for that. And that's my take. And I would say to anybody that I was talking about, to them personally, if I was talking to them, because that's just the way it is.
Sure.
So that leaves a little bit of bad taste in my mouth, and thinking to myself, is that somebody I want as a leader?
Yeah. Well, as an elected official, you need to act in a certain way. Look, people say to me, I have been very critical of the president, and I tell people, I think the president needs to act presidential. I said, That's just the way it is. I don't like a lot of his rhetoric. He leads people who have different beliefs than him.
Yeah.
And Brian leads people who have different beliefs than him. Even if most of them are Democrats, even a lot of Democrats don't believe in everything Brian says. And I think Brian, it took him a while to be apologetic for it, but I think after a year, I think he's understood that what he did was wrong, and he didn't act like a state representative. And he was acting as a state representative, because I think, number one, when you're an elected official, you're always that elected official. There's no downtime. You're that elected official 24 hours a day. But when Brian made the one video, he said, "This is State Representative Brian Sims."
Oh yeah, he wanted people to know that was his title.
Yeah.
And he used that as a platform for that video to attack somebody else and their beliefs.
Yeah.
And that right there set a tone stating that I don't care who you are or what you believe in, it's not good enough for me.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought. And
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, I give everybody a huge benefit of the doubt. And when the respect level goes from here to here like that, I have to look at things. So we do need a change. And it's going to lead me to this next question. I get up very early in the morning because my brain never shuts down. And sometimes I get lost right now, especially in this wormhole on social media of rhetoric and these rants and raves of people, saying things. And for the longest time, especially since this is, Kenny's second term in office, and, with somebody like our current DA, and it pains me to say it, even his name, because I'm not a huge fan, but, every time something happens in this city, whether it's a shooting, whether it's, something with the opioid epidemic, whether it's something with whatever, it's the blame is on the Democrats. It's get the Dems out of office. It's Dems. All they people are saying, it's Dems, get them out of office, vote them out of office. All of a sudden, the tides in Philly have turned, and people are turning against their party. People of their own party are turning against the Democratic Party. And it's very interesting to see this. And I'm thinking that what's happened is we've voted in the wrong Democrats, because number one, Larry Krasner, he's not my DA, definitely not my DA, not my choice. So, I see this. What will it take, Drew, on your end, you think, to get the Dems out, to get the right people in?
Well, it's interesting because I agree that people are leaving the establishment of what has been the Democratic Party, and I do see a lot of people coming to the Republican side, but then you have people on the other side going, what I'll say, some people are going right to get away from it, some people are going left, and as evidence in the Working Family Party winning one of those seats. What I think the Republican Party needs to do is to become more moderate, and and understand that. And I think in many ways they are. Like, I think, we talked about the LGBT issue. I don't see many people in the Republican Party in the city of Philadelphia who are against LGBT rights, and which is a good thing. And in fact, I've never heard anybody say anything homophobic in the Republican say. But I think we need to become, look at the gun violence. And as I'm running, I get a ton of questionnaires from everywhere. But it's funny, I opened up, I think I've gotten 3 questionnaires about gun rights. One from Ceasefire Philadelphia, which is an anti-gun group.
I know them well.
Yeah, I've gotten questionnaires from the NRA. And it's funny, as I sent the Ceasefire one in, and I joked with my wife, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely not getting that endorsement. And then I sent the one in from the NRA the next day. I said, yeah, definitely not getting that endorsement. So, I say I believe in the Second Amendment. I believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe we need common sense gun laws. And I think the Republicans in the city of Philadelphia, if they don't embrace that, they're not going to go anywhere, because we have a gun problem in the city of Philadelphia. And when I talk to them, they'll say, look, it's people using the guns, and most of those committing those crimes don't own their guns legally. And I agree with that. And it's interesting. One question that always comes up is, should Harrisburg give Philadelphia more autonomy when it comes to their gun laws? And meaning, should Philadelphia be able to make their own gun laws? And I don't think they should, and only because I think Philadelphia might go too far. But I think Harrisburg needs to work with Philadelphia so they can have their own gun laws, but that Harrisburg basically has to approve them, if that makes sense.
Well, I don't believe that we should have that type of autonomy to have our own laws for anything. I mean,
Mhm.
other than, of course, like limited things like the cannabis, that's a very minor thing right now,
Yeah, you're like, if they make weed legal, hell, make it legal in Roxborough only. That's what I care about.
I'm voting Republican.
Right.
But what were we talking about now? No, I think we should not have that type of autonomy. But I believe that we are a city in crisis.
Yeah.
We have a crisis on many levels, and one of them is gun violence. I mean, this isn't anything new either. This isn't a 2019 or 20 issue or 2017 or 16. This has been for many years going on. I think Harrisburg needs to step in, 5 years ago and
Yeah.
say, this is what we need to do. We're not getting that type of support. But I also think that we need to have those elected officials have I don't know if I could say it, but I'm going to say the balls enough, to go to Harrisburg or go above Harrisburg and say, we need help.
Yeah.
Bring somebody in, get people in here and help us. And maybe call me old fashioned and call me, just I'm a very simple person and I believe in simplicity. I was an educator by college trade, and I started in
Okay.
education. And I have law enforcement in my family, probably 'cause that's why there's Republicans in my family.
Oh, I was gonna say the FOP is definitely starting to become more and more Republican because of our DA Larry Krasner. That's for sure.
Absolutely. But I also think that like in schools, they used to have really great programs, like Dare and Great, where they educated the best they could on certain things like that. And I
Hmm.
believe, not saying that we need those programs here in Philly, but we need programs like that. Like back in the early 90s, when I was with the Boys and Girls Clubs of America, I taught the Smart Moves drug and alcohol program, you know, which is like a really crazy thing for me to do. But
Yeah.
but I think that we also need to start in the education side of it. We need to start when they're younger,
Sure.
because Philly is a city where, we have a high level of at-risk youth, and we aren't doing that. So I really think, it has to go to elected officials. They have to really push Harrisburg. Harrisburg needs to push, the federal government. There has to be some type of intervention somewhere, and it's not happening.
Sure.
And I don't even hear a lot of I got to be honest with you, I don't hear a lot of city council people speaking up about it either.
Well, they tried to pass laws a couple years ago. I think it was Council President Clark, and it was wiped off the books immediately because they weren't able to do it. But I agree with it. And what I tell people, one of my campaign slogans is, we all know the definition of insanity. And if you keep electing Democrats on a state level, Harrisburg's not going to listen to Democrats. Let's have a few Republicans from Philadelphia, and then if you want anything to happen in Harrisburg, a good thing to do is maybe to have a few Republicans, because the state legislature is currently, at least, is run by Republicans, and I think in the near future it will be run by Republicans. Um, so why not have a couple Republicans from Philadelphia in the state house? And right now we only have one. We have Martina White. So that's one of my campaign slogans. Basically, try something different. You want people, you want Harrisburg to listen, and then vote in Republican.
I love it. And so, and it's interesting because I got to be honest, Drew, I didn't know that, I knew that you were, more on the liberal side of, a Republican. But I really didn't know that you were a Democrat first. And I think this is also important for people to know that, you can't put that label on
Hmm.
somebody based upon what we have to register on our voter's card. We need
Yes.
to put something on that voter's card. I put that on there back in 1991, Democrat. Why?
Yeah.
Because back then in 1991, that's really all there were. You looked at it like that, and I just chose that, and but I think it's really your beliefs and your ideologies, and I think we need to have more people out there with a voice and understanding the platforms and listening to the platforms. But I
Sure.
think what happens is if you were to like not tell somebody that you were Republican and just tell them that you were running, I think that they would probably at the end of the conversation be like, "Wow," and then say, "By the way, I'm running on the Republican." You're like,
Yeah.
"What?" You know? I think just almost like Duke, you know? If you weren't to tell somebody first, that shock value would be there,
Yeah.
because your thoughts. And I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to drop that label.
No,
And
you're right. And listen to people and what they have to say before assuming what they're going to believe just because of the R or D in front of their name. And I'm like you. I think I registered as a Democrat. It was freshman year in college, so it was 90 or 91. Uh,
mhm,
I registered because my parents were Democrats. I
mhm.
assumed that's what I was supposed to be. My mom hated Republicans. Never voted for Republican in her life. I said I joke around that I don't think my mom would vote for me right now. She would, if she was still on this earth, she would not be able to push that R button. She feels like God would strike her down, and her father, and then her father, who was a Teamster, would strike her down. So, yeah, I mean, you definitely can't paint me with any brush. I mean, you know, I on the healthcare side, I'm definitely more liberal. The gun side, I'm really moderate, right down the middle.
Okay.
You know, and
And
I'm
how
right down the middle on a lot of issues.
so then how are you on and I'll probably know this on the safe house side?
Sure,
Uh
I am opposed to the safe injection sites.
all across the board. Across the board you're opposed. You're not just opposed because of what happened in South Philly. You're opposed across the board.
Yeah, I just don't
Okay.
think. And look, you're going to know better than I. And when I
Mhm,
ran for city council last year, I talked. Look, I didn't do any official studies, but a lot of people. That was one of the main things both Republicans and Democrats talked about. It was the top three issues. The three
mhm,
issues were soda tax, safe injection site, and sanctuary city. That's what everyone wanted to talk about. And
mhm.
so a lot of people would come up to me afterwards, and many people who were addicts, and they said they agreed with me. So I mean, it's a really tough issue. I mean, as I
Mhm,
sat there, the South Philly issue was ridiculous. What they
mhm,
did was
mhm.
ridiculous on many levels. You can't,
Agreed.
yeah, you can't dig a hole in this city without community input, let alone put a safe injection site without community.
They lost well, to me personally, I mean, I'm a supporter, I'm a fan only because I
Sure,
believe that we need to save lives. We gotta do
yeah,
something to save lives,
sure.
you know? I believe that they lost a lot of respect based on the fact that they didn't communicate with the community on
Hmm.
proper levels to let people know. Well, you have the own city council people standing there with their mouths dropped and their pants down, like, "What just happened?" That's an issue to me. To
Sure,
me, that's an issue because now what you're going to do is you're basically just putting your fingers up to the whole community, you
yes.
know? And to me, it put us back a little bit in our fight,
Sure.
you
And
know?
look, I agree with you. Something has to be done. I
Mhm,
don't know those answers. Um, to me, my opposition is on two levels. I don't think it's going to be good for any community, but I also don't know, and I'm not an expert,
mhm,
but I do feel like it's going to enable addicts. And I talked to addicts, and there was one person I talked to, and it was only about 2 months ago, and it was an Uber driver. Saw I wear my pin all the time. So he realized I was running for office. And that came up and he said, well, I'm a recovering addict. And he said, I think if there were safe injection sites when I was trying to recover, he said, I think I'd be dead right now. So I don't know
hmm,
if I feel like I don't think it's going to help people. And I've read a lot of the studies, and I think it's great that no one has died inside a safe injection site. I think, and I also want to say that anybody who's trying to open one of these sites are doing it for the right reasons. I think they're good people who are trying to save people's lives. But a study I want to see is these sites have been around for a long time in other countries. I want to see, okay, here's a person who came into the safe injection site January 1, 2015. On January 1, 2016, this person was on the road to recovery or maybe clean. And that's what I'm not seeing. I want to see the only way I can consider one of these sites is if it gets people clean. Like I understand that might not be the initial goal. It's keeping them alive today so they can have the ability to get clean tomorrow. But I want to see a study that says we're helping these people get clean. And
okay.
then maybe I consider it.
And I agree. Listen, in my mind, okay, because I've never stepped inside of a safe consumption site.
Mhm.
And I'll use consumption because, of course, I'm an advocate for. So I'll use the word that you're
Sure.
trying to get into it, because it's not just going to be for, people that are, intravenously using. It's supposed to be a monitoring sort of thing. But I've
Sure.
never stepped inside of one. I've always wanted to check them out in Canada because they worked. I was fascinated by them back in the '90s when Europe was looking at them. Back when they were doing that the legal. Only because I was looking at the rate that people weren't dying from it. I also, in my mind, in the perfect world, I'm thinking that inside there's going to be counselors that are going to actually be working with them, that are going to
Mhm.
be bringing them in before that they allow them to consume. And maybe, after, making sure that there's a time frame, that they're not just allowed to walk out that door immediately after. These are
Yeah.
really unknowns that I have zero clue about. I think if I had more facts on it, I could make a more substantial, yeah, now I'll really back you 100%. But I'm losing a little bit more faith in that. We do need it. They're they are in the right, their hearts are in the right place and everything like that. I
Yeah.
mean, they're looking to save lives, and that's what the ultimate goal is. But if we had if we had Republicans running in the city, do you think that would ever have gotten passed at this point? Do you think,
For a
even
safe,
to be allowed to be considered, like the support that they have from the mayor is like all for it. He is all over it. He wants it. He believes this is a necessity. He's gone to Canada. He's done the studies with his team. They've come back. They visited twice, I believe. I'd like to say this. I don't know for that fact, but I'm pretty sure. But you think that if it was a Republican there, that the conversations would have even gotten to the point?
no, no, you're right. The conversation on the safe consumption sites would not even start. Now, I think I met with
You
one
said
Republican
consumption.
who
Thank
is,
you.
what was that?
Said you said consumption. Thank
Yeah,
you.
so I say, there's only one Republican I've ever met, and I think you know her. I don't want to, I don't want to out her, but, who has said she is for the safe consumption sites. So no, I don't think a conversation would be had to further that discussion. But I think we need to further the discussion on what's the answer, because that's what people say. People say, well, if you're against this answer, you got to come up with another answer. You at least need to try. And I agree with that. And there's a group of us, a group of Republicans, a lot of Republican ward leaders who are trying to get a group together to talk about it. Like to say, look, we can't just be Republicans saying, no, that's not the answer, and turning our back on the issue, because we do need to come up with some answers. And a friend of mine, Pete Smith, who I don't know if you've met, he's been on the show a few times. His son is on the streets, and his son is an addict, and he's against the sites. But he said, look, I need to help my son. I need to help other people. We need to change the system. The system's not working. I mean, something as simple as when you are in these rehab sites, you're not allowed to smoke. I mean, that's insane to me. Like, let's worry about one thing at a time. Allow
It's
these
crazy.
people to smoke, and because if you can't smoke, they're not going to try to get help, right? And that was just one small issue that I learned about in the past few months, that you're not
Mhm.
allowed to smoke in these rehabilitation. Uh,
Somebody just lost their life recently, and it was a huge thing around that.
yeah,
And
it's insane to me. Look,
it's
smoking's bad
crazy,
for you. It is, and but it's
but it's
not
a
as
lot better
bad.
than on the streets.
Yeah, it's a lot better than on the street. It's a lot better injecting yourself
Hmm.
with something that may have fentanyl in it. And you know, let's worry about that problem after they're at least somewhat further down the line in the steps to recovery. And then, you know, so there's got to be a different answer. And honestly, if I don't know if I could ever agree with safe consumption sites, but if I did, it would be in a
Hmm.
hospital. And honestly, it would be part of a complete rehabilitation process where maybe you're not allowed, and I don't know, maybe you're not allowed to leave. Like maybe it's a step by step, and maybe you're in there for 6 months. And then, again, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a specialist, but would it be that's the first step, and you need to, we'll monitor you, but you're not going to leave, and then we're going to try to wean you off of these drugs, and then maybe I can be on board with it a little bit. But allowing people to do these drugs and then leave, I mean, how I've not met, and look, maybe and there are some people, maybe you're one of them, who said, yeah, I would allow one of these next to my house. I don't want it next to my house with my children walking around. I mean, people on drugs, they're not in their right mind when they are high. So I would not feel comfortable having it in my community. And I didn't see any community around the city that when I was running, I didn't find any community that said I'd be fine with it. I saw a lot of people. In fact, I live in Logan Square. I talked to one woman who was absolutely for these sites, these four safe consumption sites. And I said, okay, what's going to happen when they put one in Logan Square? And she said, oh, no, they're not coming here. I said, what? They're not coming to Center City? I said, number one, you're wrong. I said, they're going to put them where people are using drugs, and people use
Right.
drugs in Center City. I mean, it's not Kensington, and it's not South Philly. but I would say Center City's probably third on that list as far as drug use, because, we have a dense population here, so that, people are trying to find money to live and trying to find money to do drugs. Center City is one of the places they're going to come. And the Hub of Hope is awesome. I agree with it. It's been great for people to go in, get clean clothes, get a shower, but it does bring people who are doing drugs to our community. And again, I'm fine with it, but to say, this woman, I said to her, I said, Center City is third. I said, I don't know if it's Logan Square. It'll be Logan Square. I said, it's going to be Kensington 1, South Philly 2, Logan Square, or near the convention center is going to be the third site. And she was flabbergasted. She's like, no, that can't happen. I said, so it's okay for other communities, but not our affluent area of Center City, Philadelphia. So, and she's a Democrat. She's a limousine Democrat, I guess.
But these are answers that, like, I think about often. Like, I think about, if our elected officials were different in our city, would the opioid crisis be a lot different? Would the gun violence issue be a lot different? Would the sanctuary city, which is, I don't believe it's an issue. I really don't believe that's an issue in my mind. But would the guidelines, would there be different guidelines? Would there be more of a control over things? And, because I believe that we, regardless of who we are and, and what we believe in, we've got to follow the law. They're in place for a reason, and they've got to be enforced by the right people. So if we don't have those right people enforcing the laws, how do we expect the people to act properly?
Sure.
So I think about that often. So, I hope, there's voices for our city and for our state, like yourself, that are able to, excel, and people see that and, catch on and hear about it. And the more you talk, Drew, and the more people will know who Drew Murray is and what you stand for and your platform is. So I really, wish you the best. I hope I see you in office.
No, thank you. And it is tough, though, because, so what's the toughest thing is raising money, because people want to give money to something they're extremely passionate about. And when someone looks at me and they say, well, you're kind of too liberal for me, I'm definitely too conservative for Democrats, a lot of Democrats. It's almost like the moderates, which I think we need more of. And a lot of people will say that, oh, we need more moderates. Even if I'm liberal and I'm a very liberal Democrat, or I'm a very conservative Republican, a lot of people will say we need more moderates, because that at least they'll bring people to the table to discuss. Well, people don't want to give money to moderates because it's not their passion. So that's one of the hardest things right now. Even last year, I raised $50,000 total. That's okay for an election. That's not good. That's not great by any means. I mean,
but it's
Justin
okay.
Bernardinus raised 100,000, and I like Justin. Justin raised well over 100,000. Ernst Sandemore raised well over 100,000. And I'm a Republican, so it was harder. But it is, when you're not far left or far right, it's a lot harder to raise money in any election. So that is a hurdle.
So what can what can people do to support you? What can you do? What do you do to raise the money?
Well, this year is an anomaly, right? I mean, I'm not really raising money much at all right now. I'm not necessarily trying yet. Well, and for two reasons, because I don't have a primary opponent, right? So I'm running a November election. Last year, I mean, I raised a lot of money from friends who are Democrats. Actually, I'd say 80% of my donations were Democrats, because in that race, I'm not in city council. I'm not really running against other Democrats. I was running for one of the two seats that are reserved for non-Democrats. So we'll see about this cycle. It's a little different. A lot of my friends who donated last year are friends with Brian Sims. I don't expect them, even if they want to support me to a level, they might give me a little bit, but just to push forward democracy. But it's going to be hard. And, you raise money by events, right? I can't have events right now. So,
no.
Yeah, I mean, there's no parties. I didn't even have my announcement party yet. My announcement party was going to be in April, and that's not, which is much later than last year, because I didn't have a primary opponent. So it's probably going to be actually March. But so no events. Raise a little bit of money on Facebook here and there. Once this really gets rolling, this will be a different election, because Brian Sims is well known throughout the country. So now I'm making the assumption Brian is going to get past the primary because he does have Marisa Shaban is running against him. But I would guess I'll get some national money in lower, $25, $50 donations from across the country, because Brian Sims is not liked by Republicans around the country.
Right. So, and that'll work to your advantage, which is really okay.
Yeah,
That's
it's
the way it
interesting.
should
I mean,
be.
I don't necessarily have, skin in the game in the primary, but for me, raising money, Brian is going to help me raise more money than and it will be interesting to see what happens in that primary. But Brian is very well liked by many, but Brian is very not liked so much by many as well, and that's a Democrat. So it'll be interesting to see that primary. I think Brian will win because it's hard to beat an incumbent. But yeah, so this is an interesting cycle, and it's going to be harder to raise money, and we'll see.
Yeah, but you know what? Your name's out there then.
Yeah.
People know the name.
Sure.
You know,
Look, I'll be honest with you. What I want is to win in city council this time in 3 years. I will be running for city council again in 3 years. Even if I win this election, I want to run for city council.
Nice.
Who knows? Things change, and maybe I'll run on it in a different office, and maybe I was approached for this race. Maybe I'll be approached for a different race. And look, I'm approached by Democrats as well who say, Drew, will you come back? We need a more moderate voice on the Democratic side. We have a lot of people, and you said it yourself, you're not a fan of our DA. A lot of people are not a fan of our DA, Larry Krasner. And so a lot of people come to me and said, Drew, we need people like you who are moderates to be a Democrat again. And I've said no. So we'll see what happens.
That could be a whole show in itself talking about that DA.
I know. I've had a half a show at least talk to him.
Well, we're gonna have to come back and do it again, I think,
Yeah.
because there's a lot to say there. That's a lot to there, definitely. But anyway,
So I guess
but you never know what can happen.
yeah. So I guess we're coming to an end here. I think we're at about an hour, and we didn't have a break. So I guess we should wrap it up. I'm sure Dylan's listening to us. So I guess
Dylan, you still there, or did you fall asleep?
yeah. So we'll say goodbye from the Republican zone and be the voice, Britt Carpenter. And hopefully we'll see everyone. Hopefully we'll see everyone in person very soon.
Absolutely. And definitely let's do this again, Drew. And if we don't do it again in person, let's do it again via this, because it's a good conversation.
No, this was good. Look, when it goes by fast, it was a good one.
Absolutely.
All right, Britt, thank you. And thank you everyone for listening.
Yep. Thanks, Drew. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
See ya.